So back with our 2.5 RS, we have a lot of body work ahead of us. In the last video, we got the hood, the fenders, the hood scoop, and the side skirts all set in primer. And it's gonna take some time for that stuff to cure, so I can't really do too much with it quite yet. However, I did install a new heater in the shop, A, to keep me warm, but B, to help accelerate the parts. So we have a very nice, it's like, dude, Amazon, 150 bucks. That thing puts out some heat. It does work. So it's got a temperature in it, or a thermostat in it and all that stuff, so it regulates its own temperatures and whatnot. So the shop will stay a regular 70 to 80 degrees right now while we have stuff curing. So the main focus for today is gonna be cut and welding the rear quarter panels for our wide body. Once these are cut and welded, we can start trimming down our wide body kit and actually start molding it to the car. We are gonna have to epoxy prime the area underneath of the wide body, but shouldn't be too bad. We have a couple holes on the body also that we're gonna have to weld up, which not bad. It's underneath of the wide body, so you'll never see it, so it doesn't have to look the prettiest, but I still want it to be somewhat pretty. So before we jump onto any bodywork stuff, I do want to pull the diff out of the car one final time. We are gonna swap on an automatic Impreza flange to the diff so we can use the drive shaft that I already have here. There's no sense in buying parts when I already have good parts. But the other thing I want to do is put on a new diff cover. So I snagged a more sport diff cover for the 2.5 RS for the R180. So obviously to put that on, the diff's got to come back out one more time. So start by getting the diff out, getting all of our diff updated and whatnot, putting it back in, and then jumping on cutting up this car and welding it shut. God, why? New diff cover installed. So I believe this also has a slightly increased capacity. This is a more sport one. Seems like that seems to be the theme a lot on this car, is a lot of more sport goodies, but I got it on sale, so I'm not gonna complain too much. Super hyped with this actually. That thing looks really good. I've always eyeballed them, but I've never justified buying one. But since we're going all out on this car, might as well buy one, right? Now that I've got this on, I guess it's time to jump to some body work. Rear bumper has to come off, then we can pull off this rear over fender and we're gonna start cutting. Now, I'm not going to cut this whole panel out underneath here. We're gonna do this similar to how we do a lot of the flares on some of the cars, where we bring the cut up to clearance for wheels and tires, but I don't want to go cutting out a lot of the structural integrity of that panel behind our, obviously, wide body kit. So I'll bring it up probably 2 or 3 inches. I'll follow the arch up. From there, we'll only cut the outer skin, take the inner skin, bend it up, grind it all down to bare metal, weld it up from the outer skin to the inner skin to fill up the gap, and then we'll seam seal, and then we're gonna have to epoxy prime behind this entire panel. So we have a lot of prep work to do behind this panel before we can even mold this, because we need under here to be protected from the elements. So we'll put on some epoxy primer. I don't know if it needs to be painted, to be honest. I'll do a little bit of research, but I think just epoxy primer will be fine underneath of this panel. So let's rip all this off real quick. To give you guys a little insight here, I've done enough of these in the past to kind of know what works best and what doesn't. Right now I'm letting the panel cool down. If you keep welding all of this up all at once, you will warp the panel, so we have to give it breaks. So from about right here to right here is all welded up. Now the whole point of welding the outer skin back to the inner, or the inner skin back to the outer skin, is to give strength back to this panel. I've seen people where they'll make all these tabs and they'll like rivet them to the body. Don't do that. if you're gonna wide body your car, do it the right way. Cut them all, weld them all, seam seal everything, epoxy prime everything. Do it the right way if you're gonna do it, because you want this to obviously last. And cutting up a car like this, if you don't do it properly, it's going to rust out quicker, because now you've got all this exposed metal where water can now get in the car. So we have to weld all this up and then seam seal it all, and then put another layer of undercoating on this section, at least down here, because as we weld this, it is kind of burning off in some spots, which is not a big deal. We'll grind all the welds down smooth, and we'll make this like a nice smooth transition. So what I'm doing is I'm tack welding all of the tabs. So we cut out the outer skin, which is over there on the ground. We then cut slits into the inner skin, and we fold that up to meet up with the outer skin. Once it's met up with the outer skin, we obviously grind off any paint or epoxy primer, anything that's in the way, and then we tack weld them. Once they're tack welded, we can actually cut the tabs down, because we want the tack weld to be our welded surface, or our mating surface, where it meets up to the body. So it's just rinse and repeat going through this whole thing. Next section I'm gonna focus on is kind of right here. Once that's done, it'll be done up to this point, and then we just gotta do down through here, and then we can jump over to the other side. I'd like to get both sides done today, but we'll see how well that goes. This is taking a little bit longer than I thought. Now, when it comes to welding these up, you have to be careful that you don't overheat the panel, you don't start a fire, and you don't warp anything. If you overheat the panel, it's gonna warp. If it warps, it's gonna get out of the shape that it's supposed to be in. Obviously, if you start a fire, like I may or may not have done several times, make sure you put the fire out immediately. The inside of the car can catch on fire if there's any dirt, dust, debris, or anything inside of the panels, and an ember or a spark falls down there. Or if your blanket catches on fire, try to put that out as fast as you can. We have one side done. Now keep in mind, this one side took me about 4 hours, but I am pretty happy with how it came out. So we have the inner metal welded to the outer metal. We've got everything ground down nice and smooth. We've got a layer of seam sealer on all of this to ensure that we keep the weather out and not in the car. So we have it actually seam sealed on the outside as well as the inside of the car, so that way we have double protection to make sure that nothing from the outside is getting through the body panel here. So this needs to cure. I need to do the other side, but I'm out of time for tonight, so we're gonna have to jump back on that when I come back tomorrow. But like I said, keep in mind, this took me about 4 or 5 hours to knock out one quarter panel here. I mean, you can do it real quick and dirty where you cut it and you screw it, like use self-tapper. It's just not the right way to do it. If you're gonna do it this way. Welding this material back in here does add structural integrity back to this panel. And if you really wanted with the wide body, you could cut out all this if you wanted, but it's just not necessary. The only thing that we're trying to accomplish here is by giving us more clearance up. That's the whole point of wide body. Bigger tire, we can go a little bit lower if we want. Wide body, it's functional now. It'll actually work. So we are back in the shop. It's a new year. We went out to Spokane to hang out with Remy, Josh, and all of them for New Year's and whatnot. It was a good time. Now it's back to work. So we have one side cut, welded, all done up and everything like that. Now it's time to do the real messed up side, which is covered in body filler. So I don't know if this side's gonna be easier or harder, to be honest, with all of this body filler on here. I'm feeling I'm gonna have to sand a lot of it off, which if I do, it's not a big deal. It's just that there's a lot of it. So let me start cutting. We'll see how deep this stuff goes. Now, I was expecting the driver's side to actually be worse than the passenger side just because this is the side swipe side. Little did I know, it was the exact same. I thought that this Bondo was gonna go way deeper and I was gonna find way more damage on the initial part of that panel, and to be honest, I didn't really find anything. It was pretty straight and pretty smooth actually. So same thing as before, we get the inner skin cut, we then turn that inner skin into tabs, bend the tabs up to the outer skin, tack weld them all, cut the tabs off, and then fully weld. And once again, make sure you are controlling heat. If you need to stop for a little while, let the panel cool down, do so, because like I said, the last thing you want to do is warp it. But welding all of this back together puts all the strength back into the panels, so that way you don't have flimsy quarter panels, because that's really the last thing you want. Plus it helps seal everything up, and you don't want anything outside getting inside the car. That was straight up not a good time. This side of the quarter panel is now done, cut, welded, sealed, good to go. This takes so long, you guys, but you know what the poop thing is? We're not done welding on the body. We still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more things to weld up. And then I think that's all the holes on the body that need to be welded up, aside from maybe some small ones that we drilled to mock up the wide body kit. But outside of that, dude, like this is the absolute worst because it takes so long. But look at that. Structural integrity of the panel is back, which is the whole goal of welding it. If you're someone who's putting a wide body on, you're cutting the tabs and you're using sheet metal screws to hold the tabs to the body, step back, go to Harbor Freight, just go buy that cheap little welder that I bought. It's a Vulcan 220 Omni Pro. It's a multi-process welder. It'll do TIG and MIG. It's not very good at TIG. I'm gonna forewarn you that now, but it will do it if you absolutely need to, but it does great at MIG. So I'm actually gonna bust out my TIG welder and we're gonna start welding up all the holes, all the small little holes that run along the body. Now, the wide body does cover these, so technically you won't see them, so they don't need to be the prettiest, but with the TIG weld, it's gonna be a lot easier to control and there's not gonna be any splatter that comes off of the weld as I do it. So I bought another kit of this. They're Eastwood sheet metal screws. Just sheet metals, Eastwood sheet metal plug kits. They come with a variety of sizes of plugs, so all we're gonna do is drill up that hole, find the matching plug that we're gonna need, which I think I'm gonna use 7/8 because that's the smallest one. We're gonna put the 7/8 plug in there and then weld it shut. That's the whole goal of what we're doing right now. So let me get the car in the air, let me make some room, let's get the welder over here, and let's knock out these other 6 holes that we have. All 6 of our body holes are welded and I guess kind of ground down. They don't need to be like permanently ground down. On the inside, you guys can see it on that side, I did put sealer on the back side of the weld just to ensure that nothing's gonna sneak through. So we've got these 3 done as well as the 3 on this side. So that only leaves 1 more hole on the body that we actually need to weld up, which is right here, which we will do that one in a little bit. Actually, I think I just saw 1 more down here. Okay, no, that's a hole I drilled. We might have to do a little bit of touch up here along this seam from when it was sideswiped, but we can do that later. What I want to jump to next, since we're on the topic of getting those rear quarter panels prepped, is we need to strip this quarter panel down to bare metal or as close as we can, and I would like to get this sprayed in epoxy primer tonight so it can cure, because we need to get everything underneath of where the wide body is going to go sealed up in primer so that way it is protected. So we got both quarter panels stripped down to bare metal now, so these are both ready for epoxy primer after they're cleaned. This side is actually not as bad for damage as I thought. It just looks like it's been peppered with a whole bunch of rocks. I don't know why they used as much Bondo as they did on this, because it totally was not needed. So now that both of these are stripped down to bare metal, tomorrow we're gonna epoxy prime both of this so that way it can cure up. We're gonna have to let it cure for a couple days, but at least we have the heater in here now so that way they can cure a little bit quicker. But once these are cured, we can actually start molding our wide body on. We've got the bottoms cut, sealed, cleaned up, everything like that. So the worst of this is either done or yet to come. I don't know how bad it's gonna be mold the wide body, but we'll find out. It can't be that bad. We've got the car masked. I do not have the shot mask right now because they should be pretty isolated and pretty quick. We're just gonna be shooting the rear quarter panels to get some primer on. Now, this is not primering the car permanently because I want to do all of that when the body is molded on. This is just to get primer on this bare metal surface so that way it is protected underneath of the wide body. So primer, cup, paint gun, boom, everything's already set up. let's just get to it. Shana, shana, na, na.
I'm gonna go a little light on this first one. Let's coat one. Dude, that looks so much worse with primer on it. Jesus Christ. I actually see one spot I missed. Right on the end. There we go. All right, 15 minutes. Then we'll do coat two. We're gonna do 3 coats total as per usual, because all we want to do right now is protect the rear quarter panel. That is all we're trying to achieve with this primer. Because after this is cured, the wide body is going to get molded on, and then it's going to get painted permanently. So this is just a protectant layer right now.
Quarter panels are all primed and sealed now. Everything we've done in this video was literally just prep to be able to get the wide body on, but this is the right way to do things. If you're going to wide body your car, there's so much more that goes into it than just cutting and then putting on the wide body and sheet metal screws, because I know a lot of people will see that stuff and they think, wow, dude, wide body is so easy. The right way to do it takes a lot more time. As you guys have seen, we just in prep alone, I think we're like 3-4 days into this, but the results are going to be so much better because now that we have that layer of epoxy primer on the car, it's going to protect the actual metal of the car so that way this car lasts. That's why we spent so much time removing rust, removing defects, sanding everything down to bare metal, re-undercoating the car, re-epoxy priming it, re-seam sealing it. Everything we're doing is to ensure that this car lasts a long time and it's not just thrown together so, you know, it looks like a cool car. Like, this is the most proper way to do this. And it came out great. You guys are gonna see some really weird paint stuff down here. It doesn't matter. This entire quarter panel, for the most part, is going to be covered up and all of the surrounding areas are going to be sanded down. The seam where the wide body is going to go to going to meet up with the car, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to sand that down to bare metal to use the panel bond from the actual panel to the car. So we need to let this cure for a couple days. It will be a little bit quicker this time now that we have the actual heater up there running. I've got that set to 82 degrees, so it'll keep the shop a nice warm temperature to help all of this stuff cure up a bit more. We also don't really have any humidity in here too, which is nice. We do have these fan vent things up there that help to keep these areas dehumidified because some people do use these shops as storages for their cars. So this hyped. Big hyped with this. That's all I've got for you guys on this one because like I said, there's really not much else we can do with those rear quarter panels. What we might do in the meantime while we let that stuff cure is get the front fenders, the hood scoop all painted, so that way we can at least knock out some panels to make some more forward progress while we wait for that stuff to cure. I will probably let that epoxy primer cure up for 4 or 5 days just to ensure that it's not going to come off when we put panel bond on because we want really good adhesion on there. I did rough up those panels with like some 220 as well, just to really make sure that that primer sticks on there. I do have one more announcement. We are no longer working with the guys over at Rally Sport Direct. We have actually moved over and are working with the guys at Flat Iron Tuning now. So if you guys are looking for any OEM or RCM or anything else, definitely hit the guys up over there. We do have a new discount code with the guys at Flat Irons. Our discount code is Smeedia. That'll save you 5% on things like RCM parts, and I think it's just RCM and OEM Subaru parts right now. We are looking to expand that in the future if you guys are going to be taking advantage of that stuff. So huge shout out to the guys over at Flat Irons. I'm really hyped to be working with them. But like I said, that is all I've got for you guys on this one. So if you like the video, if you're hyped with progress on the 2.5 RS, 25B, whatever the hell we're calling this thing now, go ahead, hit that like button, turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, cyan, whatever color it turns to you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be able to put it in one of these corners, no idea which one quite yet, but with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies. Woo!